Good day, folks. This is a Diwali special. Happy Diwali to you all. Again, on the issue of the action taken by Israel against Hamas and the innocent people, Palestinian people. How's the war going? Everybody asks me. Let me just tell you, it can't be going too well. When you have Israeli news of Israeli soldiers on Gaza beach putting up the Israeli flag and singing some jingoistic and nationalistic songs, it tells you that it ain't going well at all. The news about Hamas people killed without really any proof, you really have the visuals are more of children, women that are being killed. The war, folks, is not going very well. And it's out in the streets everywhere, right? So we had this discussion. It seems to be very, there was a gentleman, a senior army officer, retired officer, who suggested to me that he's been to Israel and I should look at this war, and there is, religion has a lot to play with it. So my question is, and I see a similar argument in our other chats, which really tries to force you into religious context, that is because the Muslims are a particular way, their brutality, that this war came to be, right? And in that process, I guess I've got to agree, because Boko Haram, ISIS or Taliban haven't done their religion any favors by their brutality, their beheading. But on the other hand, you really can't. You just can't cover an entire community, an entire religion and say that they're all the same, right? They're not, right? And the problem, I think, is why the war is going the way it is because, see, first Netanyahu comes out and says, Israel will take over Gaza security after war. And I can tell you, what a laugh. Neither the IDF, they can't even really control West Bank, forget Gaza Strip, right? It just can't, right? They don't have the wherewithal. And the Americans have made a statement countering that's just not something that they want. And let me just say, if the Americans don't want Netanyahu, doesn't have a flag to, he can sit on a pole and just fly this flag. And you're beginning to also see, right, as I'm seeing here, Israelis struggle to imagine a possible peace. And that's a very interesting article in the foreign press by a guy called Ethan Nechin. And what he says is, a wounded activist movement tries to come to terms with war. He says, but after a month of conflict, is it possible to imagine not just a ceasefire, but a peace? But a bruised peace movement is struggling to come to terms. And he says, normally, he says, basically, during wartime, citizens rally in support of their government. But the sense of popular determination stands in sharp contrast to the profound decline in trust towards Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. Confidence in Netanyahu is at a historic low. So this is what it's all about. It's Netanyahu's war. He doesn't have an end, folks. Let me just tell you, there is no end, because he doesn't know whether it's a war against terrorism, against extremism, or is it a war? If it is a war, folks, and he's a democracy, he's got to fight this war with the terms of war. You just can't do this. Palestinians say Israeli strike hit Gaza hospitals and school. Gaza hospitals in firing line that Israel claims are militant hubs. Blinken says far too many Palestinians have been killed. In first comments on war, MBBS slams Israel aggression. Expansion of war inevitable, says Iran. All these things are happening in that region. The important thing to note is, when you go and strike hospitals, public infrastructure, India and Pakistan have fought 2 wars, right? And really never went after hospitals and the like, because that's how you fight a war, right? You can't go after water terminals, you can't go after fuel dumps, you can't do anything that goes after civilians, because they're actually, you can't make them a collateral damage to such an extent, right? Because the problem is, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? Just like the United States didn't know what it was actually the objectives are when it went into Afghanistan or Iraq, right? Need humanitarian pauses, stop conflict spread, India, US on Gaza. So this is another interesting meeting happening just at this time. Blinken's had a fairly unsuccessful visit to the region, right? But he's here, the 2+2, which is Austin, Blinken, and Jaishankar, Rajnath, right? And guess both of them have come out on the same side as far as Israel and the Palestinians have come out. And India is in is lock and step with unfortunately or fortunately with the United States. Israel occupying territory for indefinite period after war ends. Big mistake, says US. I agree with it. Israel cites civilian toll of US wars as moral justification. And that's Netanyahu, not every Israeli, right? As public anger rises, Arab states clamor for Gaza ceasefire. Pressure escalates to pause assaults. Push into Gaza city intensifies, and that's what it does. But blowback, the anti-Semitism. So this gentleman who spoke to me about how I should look at Islam in a particular fashion, and that has an impact on what happened and what Hamas did and Israel did. Let me just see that was going to ask a question the last time. This place has no end. This doesn't have an end result. Reason: shared history. Let me underline: shared history. Same birthplace of both the religions, Islam and Judaism and Christianity. But forced geography. Forced geography, folks. This land is not the exclusive right of Jews or the Israelis. This belongs to both the Palestinians and the Jews. It's important to note, and the pushback and anti-Semitism is all about what the world, the Anglo-Saxon and the white world actually feels. All the Trump followers, folks, are essentially anti-Semitic. All the Trump followers. More anti-Semitic than anti-black. Do you know that? Jewish students meet hostility at Yale. Civilians caught in middle pay war storm. But Israel's wartime economy can't hold up forever, writes Anchal Vora. The country's massive military mobilize has created serious economic strain. The vertebral greenhouse of the nation is now dependent on university volunteers. They have tried to salvage the situation and pick the fruits before it rots, but the efforts have fallen short. Many airlines have stopped flying to Israel, while the government has asked for activities at a gas field to be halted to minimize risk of targeted attack. Folks, tourism is 6% of their economy. Entire towns have been abandoned and businesses shut down as 250,000 people have been evacuated and forced to seek refuge across hotels. Tourism, a sector that makes up 3% of Israel's GDP and indirectly provides 6% of total jobs, has been dealt a fatal blow. New York Times. Israel military has divided Gaza into two regions. Will that hold? Israeli forces isolate North Gaza. Hamas, Gaza's despair. Everyone is just concentrating on survival. So the narrative globally is changing. The US is frustrated with Netanyahu's lack of an exit plan, but he is backed into a corner, right? The US is frustrated. Netanyahu doesn't have an end in sight. US will have to pay the bills, right? And is US at fault? Probably a lot to do with it. Hezbollah fires rockets at Israel after strike kills 3 kids in Lebanon. Blinken calls for G7 clear voice on Gaza conflict. Too many Palestinians have been killed, says Blinken, all being said in India. Modi speaks with Iran president on West Asian crisis, another important thing. And then you have Stephen M. Walt, right? The world won't be the same after the Israel-Hamas war. It most certainly won't. The Middle East's latest war will have a widespread geopolitical effect. And what does he say? He says, for starters, the war has put a monkey wrench in the US-led Saudi-Israel normalization effort. And this was important for the long-term survival of Israel. Second, the war will interfere with US's effort to spend less time and attention on the Middle East and shift more attention and efforts further east in Asia. Okay. In short, the latest war in the Middle East is not good news for Taiwan, Japan and Philippines and India or any other country that is facing growing pressure from India. But in this thing, people are trying to, in this chaucer that's been thrown, you have, or the dice that has been thrown, you have Armenia in talks to join Chahabad port for India access. But where is Iran going to come into play? Biden and Xi to meet next week on the sidelines of APEC summit. And one of the reasons why the 2+2 has happened now. Besides, it tells you two things very critical. India is just in a beautiful geography, right? It's part of the United States game plan for the next 20 to 30 years. On one side to control China, be part of the Quad, and a major player in the Middle East, right? That was the important part because all the relationships and pacts and compacts that were developing in the Middle East. India was right part of it. India, US take key steps to expand partnership. US urges India to work with Canada on probe. So basically, Canada is not going to do it. Top US officials head to New Delhi. US Secretary of State Blinken and Lloyd Austin met their Indian counterparts on Thursday and Friday in New Delhi during 2+2 dialogue, an annual exchange that enables India and the United States to take stock of their relationship and discuss future priorities. This is Michael Kugelman. See, what is he right? This year, 2+2 dialogue comes at a moment when US-India ties are in a very good place, having emerged relatively unscathed and scathed from recent global shocks relevant to the partnership. So far, the relationship appears strong enough to withstand such shocks. India views the war through a counterterrorism lens, and its position has been nearly in lockstep with the United States, a close ally of Israel. Like I was telling you that, right? There's nothing to, right? Improving convergence with America to counter China, says Rajnath. Canada is not going to win. Someone high up wants India blamed for Niger killing, says Envoy. India justified in accusing Canada of neglect, says Saran. But temper tantrums are being, Jaishankar is having to walk back, though the United States is allowing him to walk back at his own pace. World should be worried about India's threat, says PM. Absolutely. Work with Canada and Niger probe US to India. Khalistanis in Canada, big security concern, India to US. Yes, Khalistanis are a big security concern, not only to India, they're a big security concern to the Canada and to the United States, right? We all know Khalistan and Canada and Canadians have been super soft on that whole concept, but they're going to have to take note. Taking Pannu's Air India threat seriously, says Canada government, right? Israel business buckles as war inflicts heavy toll. Biden allows Israelis to enter US without visa. Now here you see all the other news items to show how India is critical and why these meetings are happening. The meeting has come at this time because as a prelude to what's happening with Xi meeting Biden. The reason being that both are sussing themselves out. With India is now saying what is the relationship between China and Xi and Biden going to be like? Will India be then sidewinded and left out to hang out to dry? The US also not yet fully comfortable that India is committed to this anti-China construct, but after this meeting, I think there may be more. So now see why we are important in the Middle East. Like I said, Iran minister meets MBS. Riyadh says looked at way forward. There is a possibility of those coming together. Black Day, Israelis up in arms against Bibi's judicial reform. This is what was happening in Israel before the whole thing started. Visit symbolizes fast warming Saudi-Israel ties, and boom. Modi MBS endorsed plans to push talks for India GCC FTA. Modi MBS draw India Saudi into tighter strategic embrace. Modi MBS lay roadmap to boost investment ties. Indo-Turkey trade warmth aims at stability in relations. This one I've always thought is never going to happen. Post G20, India and Saudi Arabia build on corridor strategic ties. Get transatlantic ducks in a row. Never happened thanks to Hamas. India Saudi plans state visit by MBS. Saudi Arabia eyes China bid for nuclear plant. India should interfere. Trade is at the heart of India-UAE relations. Delhi to be at Ukraine talks being tabled in Jeddah this weekend. In Jeddah. India to send senior MEA official to Jeddah meet on Russia-Ukraine conflict. Relationship in the Middle East and the bridge between this to the United States. India, Saudi Arabia aim for cooperation in green hydrogen. In Egypt, Deputy NSA Mishri discusses interfaith dialogue and counter extremism. Okay, but this is a beauty. Jamia picks Dubai for setting up its international campus. This is India's form of Islam to spread around. I've been advocating Jamia in Maldives. Every Muslim nation should have a Jamia. Hizb-ut-Tahrir ban likely after busting of MP module and role in pro-Hamas protests. This is something we have to be very careful about coming with the upcoming elections. But guess who's got shafted? Ukraine. Ukraine seeks more arms from Pakistan. Without end in sight, grim resignation to stalemate in Ukraine, Wagner mercenaries are intent on reigniting civil war in Mali, says US. Armored vehicles smash Russia's Suronik line for the first time. Stay united and strong, Zelensky tells US senators. Dnipro raid fuels speculation that Kyiv seeks a new front in the war. US made Abraham tanks land in Ukraine. Britain twists Scholz arm on jets. Russian assault tires on the 600th day. And this is something that I saw Times of India, and the article was incredible. Ukraine is winning now, let's finish the job. As the counter-offensive breaks down the US-Russian lines, Britain must make sure the West stands firm, and then Hamas. Do you think Russia had a hand to it? Well, if they did, it played out very well. But emboldened, Azerbaijan eyes expansion into heart of Armenian territory. Russia failed in Nagorno-Karabakh, pivoting away from Armenia. Wagner fighter believed dead as plane crashes on Mali runaway. Putin has lost control of the war, says armed forces chief, right? Then you have this. Putin in China seeks to reinforce ties, right? China arms deal in offing Kim on way to Russia for talks with Putin. Putin is in trouble. Is it all Han? She Han? Han She is China. Recent ministerial. Well, let's build more about China the next time. But here's the thing, right? Like I said, war is not going anywhere. There is a movement developing within Israel because they are not seeing any end to this war, right? The left liberal. You have Israeli army. Okay, we keep hearing news about bombing of tunnels and killing of Hamas, but the real things making the headline, global headlines, is hospitals and schools that are and children being killed. It's not doing a whole lot for the Israeli reputation, folks. I mean, I know a lot of people out there, kind of nationalism that's unfortunately both in Israel and India, the nationalism we talk about is religious nationalism, which is, folks, let me just tell you, extremely destructive for any country. And I don't think one should even delve or move towards that, because here now we have Iran's proxies in Syria move towards escalation with Israel. As Israel advances in Gaza, the intensity of the response by Tehran's so-called axis of resistance will increase. There is no peace for that region, folks. And if Netanyahu thinks he's bought peace for his folks, he's not. He's put them in harm's way. If anybody can be blamed, it's him. But over and above that, you really also, I'll talk about this, you have to blame the United States because of the way they let the Oslo Accord slide. 3 cheers, Jai Hind. And happy Diwali.